just double checking, we haven't seen Evolving play any Spires of Ascension, and I think, like you just said, it was the same thing for team name here. So that could be coming down to the wire to decide who is going to move on to the or the Grand Finals, and later on qualify for our Global Finals. Here would be which team is better practice on this dungeon. We haven't seen either of them play, but first, let's see how they do at our first game of the series. In Halls of Atonement, we've got Team Name versus Evolving.
Yeah, this is the highest stakes game in the tournament for both of these teams in all likelihood, because the winner is going to earn that ticket to the Global Finals, and the loser is not going to earn any tickets, and they are going to go home with the opportunity to play in the last stand tournament, but nothing else.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what kind of comp team name is going to be running, since, as we said, they haven't actually played this dungeon before in the tournament. So I wonder if they're going to go... I would actually assume they're going with their own kind of strat. I doubt they're going to copy that Destro Warlock, because obviously Evolving, they know that strat exactly. So team name, if they want to win this, they have to come up with something else that is even faster than Evolving strategy, at least in my mind.
Yeah, there we go. It's going to be no Warlock out of team name, but otherwise a very similar strategy with the Priest and the Frost Mage, a Rogue replacing the Warlock. So I would give the edge here to Evolving with that damage, but let's see if the Rogue is adding anything to team name strategy, you know, kind of finesse-wise, right? Pathing-wise, that is better than what Evolving can do. Here come these first pulls. They are so... Oh, no! Evolving have had a player go down. Their healer right on the first pull. That is really, really, really bad news for them.
Yeah, they need to get him up. There we go, they got him up. But Alex dropping incredibly low as he just now got rid of his necrotic stacks. But he's trying so hard to survive as the buff is already out by Aisha now. He had to probably buff him early here because he had went down. So now I'm not sure if Alex can even survive the rest of this, as Shello is ramping up his damage, but it's still gonna take a little while until the Strash goes down. He's just trying to kite a little bit here, but now Soda goes down too. Alex goes down. This might be a wipe. I don't think they can finish this off with so many dead players. Shello's still alive, but he can't be doing any damage as the mobs are just following him. I think they're trying to kite this out, but this is a disaster for Evolving from the get-go.
Oh no, and team name also having things be difficult, but have yet to have a death there. Players dropping to like 10% health, but being saved from death. And look at the damage they've been able to put out with that Shadow Priest as well. Shadow Priest not having to donate a power infusion on the side of team name, whereas in Evolving it needs to go to Shella. And so able to do just a huge amount of damage. Curry is all by himself.
Did they forget to Lust? I'm pretty sure Evolving use Bloodlust there usually, right?
So I think that it's less a case of like forgetting to Lust and more a case of the healer dying so early into the pull that was where things already had started to go bad. But yeah, I think they should have probably hit the Lust when the res came through. At least it would have been good. At this point, I don't know if you're supposed to press it though. I don't think you're going to get too much value, so maybe you save it from here until something like the next pull or the first boss. As Soda going down too, and we've now got 6 deaths on the board for Evolving. First pull still not fully dealt with. Just look at the count though. You can see how much more ambitious Evolving strategy was. As they already have more count than Team Name, and their pull isn't dead yet, but Team Name are zooming through the dungeon.
Yeah, team name dropping pretty low from that pool as well, and you can see the Ocular Gland giving the negative stats, unfortunately, here to end down the Frost Mage. So I want to get out of that range pretty quickly to get the positive effect again from that trinket. And now they're about to finish that trash pack. They also have the Stoneborn controlled here by one of the Venthyr players. They actually have 2. They have both the Sub-Rogue and also the Paladin playing Venthyr. So in case something goes wrong, they also have a backup mind control.
Yeah, that's good. And actually there are a couple spots in this dungeon where you can pull like 2 or 3 gargoyles at the same time and then have both players mind controlling, and you can get control of an extra 1 or 2 that way. So maybe they'll make some use out of that, although I think that's more of a live key thing than an MDI strategy.
Yeah, I also think so, as Evolving is now going into that pool that Team Name just got done with, and they have that Bloodlust available, so they popped it straight away. Shelley unfortunately does not have the Infernal just ready just yet, but it's going to come up in a second, and he's immediately popping it. There we go. The Infernal damage is going to come out as well for Shelley here. Team Name dealing with that Fire Tormentor here. Well, Evolving, I think Evolving didn't actually pull it on top of this pack, right? So they're gonna, oh no, there we go. They did engage it now. So they decided to just pull it at the end of this pack.
Yeah, this timing, it does, I think, mean that Evolving probably something like a minute and a half maybe behind where Team Name are at right now. So it's not insurmountable, but Team Name definitely got the better of this opening exchange. It is worth noting they do need to find quite a bit more count, though. They're still only at 55%, and you'd really like to be at around 80 once the first boss dies so that you can just go straight to the next boss and not need any more trash. So you can see Lepan getting started with pulling a bunch of trash right now, and this might even go into the first boss.
Yeah, I think that is the plan as they're gathering up everything and also engaging Halkias here. This is a really dangerous pull as some of these Houndmasters, you have a hard time gathering them up, and also the Obliterators. You can see them in the right side corner just casting through on Lepan, but they did now manage to gather them all up with all of the interrupts that they have on their range DPS here. Also PI being popped by Curry, and just all of the cooldowns basically being committed for this outside of the Bloodlust that we have. We also see the Ashen being popped too by Igloo to make sure everyone stays nice and healthy, on top of also doing a huge amount of DPS. And they also have some of the Stoneborns. They actually have two Stoneborns also committed for this.
Yeah, look at the way Lepan is just so carefully and slowly moving here. That is one of the things that will cause him the most problems, is if a slam hits another player. But they've been doing a great job of preventing that. Meanwhile, Shella ascending over on the side of Evolving, as they also have a pull going on here. Not quite as big, because they didn't need quite as much count out of this one. So maybe this will be an opportunity for them to catch back up, as they should be able to put a little bit more damage into the boss here compared to what Team Name was able to do.
Yeah, and I just noticed one interesting thing about the Frost Mages here. We have Enda on the Frost Mage for Team Name actually playing Kyrian, while Evolving's Frost Mage is playing Venthyr. So interesting difference.
It's the third unique Covenant we've seen for the Frost Mages this weekend, because we've seen them on Venthyr and Night Fae as well, but the Kyrian, a cool addition as well. I wonder what the... I'm not an expert enough Frost Mage to know what all that means, or what the Kyrian is bringing. Looks like he's playing Klaya as well. I think that might be the first time we've seen that Soulbind tree deployed in an MDI setting also.
Yeah, very interesting. I guess we can ask Anda, or maybe Syro probably can talk about that a little afterwards as well, because I'm also no mage expert myself to know anything about that. As Team Name is now getting lower and lower on Halkias here. Of course, this is the highest key level that we have in this tournament here with that 22, and it's also tyrannical. So these bosses are taking quite a long time, especially when you pull a bunch of trash on top. Then you're going to be focusing on the AoE to make sure everything stabilizes and the tank can actually survive, because it is necrotic, and that's why you see the bosses actually taking so long as well.
All right, 79% count here for Team Name. I think that is enough. I think they have all that they need, so they are going to use their Shroud. Nice thing about Shroud as well here, means you get an extra damage pot too, so that's going to shave another 10 seconds or so off the dungeon if everybody uses one of those. So when you factor all of that in, let's see what the two different boss splits are going to end up being for the teams here. It does look like maybe a minute total when you factor in the deaths, maybe a minute and a half between the teams. Team Name getting started on Echelon. I would say the hardest boss in this dungeon. Soda down on the side of Evolving, though, still against Halkias. That's going to cost them because they don't have a battle res available.
Yeah, I think it was one of those smashes as you just talked about. The tank just getting smashed, and the Windwalker being too close, and actually Shadow Priest, my bad, being too close and going down there. But thankfully the boss is pretty low. They don't have a battle rest that they can commit. Igloo also going down for Team Name. They do have a battle rest, thankfully, so they can get him back up. But that can be dangerous. Now they're out of battle rests, and they have to be careful because Echelon's still on really high percent here on that tyrannical boss fight. So any other mistakes, and it's going to cost them a lot of time.
Yeah, that death would have been deadly for them if they hadn't had that battle res. So now if any more deaths come in the next 2 minutes before they get that battle res back, things will be really, really, really bad for Team Name. They look like they're doing all right now, though. This fight, you know, it's deceptively, it lulls you into a false sense of security, because for some bits it just does nothing for a little while, and then you just have like 13 abilities coming out at once as all these imps are casting on you, and you need to land the jump and also avoid all the damage too. Okay, they're doing a good job though of managing all of this. I think they're going to be okay with this combo as well. Yeah, so well done. They have Echelon now at 35%, whereas Evolving are actually going to do a Warlock Summon to get their entire group up here. That can't have been part of the plan. There must have been a potion use that wasn't prescribed there.
I think so as well. It probably was one of those potions, especially when things don't work out the way you have planned. Then maybe you commit to a potion that you maybe shouldn't have, just because you think that you maybe are not able to do the pull otherwise or get the boss down otherwise. So they had to get the gate, the summoning portal, but that's what you have the Warlock for, right? They actually managed to save that and didn't have to die. So they saved a little bit of time there. As a team name did recover from that death on Igloo, they're gonna get another battle rest up soon. So they're gonna have that safety net again. But yeah, definitely don't want to make any further mistakes, as they're not that far ahead compared to Evolving. As you said, it's gonna be approximately a minute. So if there's gonna be one team wipe or anything going wrong for team name on the other two bosses, it can definitely mean Evolving is catching up. And there's some really dangerous pulls ahead for them, right? We've seen some really crazy pulls on top of the next boss, and it looks like they might even be skipping Veruth here.
Oh, that's going to make the last boss even more deadly. But yeah, you can see the Mind Soothe being used on Veruth, so they can just walk right on past it, and they are just going to go straight into the next boss. So this dungeon for them has been just boss into boss into boss into mini-boss into boss. That's going to be their how this dungeon ends for team name. Pretty impressive. Back to back to back to back bosses.
Yeah, I think the last boss is going to be quite dangerous with those 3 tormented divas, right? They're going to have the 50% healing reduction, they're going to have the 50% physical damage increase, which basically means that if you didn't die to a statue before, you're definitely going to die to one now if you get hit by that one. And then on top of that, you're also going to have the 50% slow. So that's going to make the last boss quite dangerous. I would assume they're saving that Bloodlust for the last boss because of that added difficulty. And this pull that they're doing here, they're doing that without Lust. They have those 2 Stoneborns that are helping them out with the damage reduction on the group as well. But look at all those shades. The shades are not an affix we talk about very often because usually these teams handle them pretty well. But if you're on such a small platform, fighting a boss and having a bunch of shades walking all over the place, then it can be pretty dangerous still.
Yeah, absolutely something that Team Name needs to worry about. Look at these boss 2 splits between the 2 teams. I just want to call some attention here. You know, even though nothing really went wrong for Evolving on this second boss part of the dungeon, you know, they didn't have these deaths, and Team Name actually did have Igloo go down. Somehow Evolving have lost another 30 seconds on this split of the dungeon. Let's see if they can do anything to try and claw this back. They are going to fight Veruth all by itself as well, so another slower part of their strategy than Team Name, but maybe this extra difficulty on the last boss is going to prove to be too much for Team Name. That is what it's all going to come down to at this point.
Yeah, it looks like a Team Name as they're finishing off the 3rd boss here. I believe they don't have a Stoneborn anymore, as they had the double Stoneborn for this boss. We've seen some teams, I think it was even Evolving, that attempted to get one of the Stoneborns here onto the last boss. It didn't work out because they casted their mind control too early, and then they didn't manage to mind control it anymore. But that was something that Evolving does, just getting that extra 10% damage reduction on the last boss, plus the extra damage that the Stoneborn is doing. But Team Name doesn't do that. They have the 2 Stoneborns for that pull before, so they're not going to have any of those for the last boss. And now they need to make sure they are meeting the damage check on this mini-boss here, because they want to get this boss down before he casts that second invocation. Otherwise, it's just going to heal to full HP, so they have to deal with those neutrals.
Wow, look at the Frost Mage damage here. Now, obviously, a lot of that's going to be dealt to the ads, but with the way the Kyrian Covenant ability works, too, it's also a huge amount of priority damage onto Cigar itself. And so they're going to be able to kill this thing easily before it reaches its next Dark Communion cast. And they are already in position to pull the last boss here. Bloodlust is ready. It might be held for a little while. It might be held for the Ashen Hallow later. They have to be really careful here because they do have the Healing and Reduction aura, which can be pretty deadly. So it looks like they might even be waiting for cooldowns here or something. I'm not sure what they're up to.
That's very possible that they're doing that, considering that they know that they're ahead, right? So it looks like they're pulling the boss now. They have those triple Tormentor debuffs, as you can see on their player frames. So really dangerous. They're not popping their Bloodlust just yet, waiting for some of those cooldowns to come back up as well. And yeah, this is really dangerous though, especially when you have that intermission phase with the woe coming out, the beams that need to be soaked by the players. It's going to be so hard for Eagle to heal that with that 50% healing reduction. They're going to have to use all of their immunities and defensives for that, making sure they're taking at least like half damage if they have anything going on for them with mitigation.
Yeah, you can have a player soak 2 beams at once. So each of those 2 phases, you need 2 players who can soak. So they have 3 immunities across their squad, and then throw in, say, 1 tank in one of the other spots, and that should mean that they mitigate much of the damage. But I mean, look at the pressure on Lepan's health bar here. While he has that extra physical damage taken and reduced healing received, he's already under so much attack as well, and Necrotic is not making things easier.
Yeah, there's just a healing reduction on healing reduction as Eagle is using Lay on Hands, but they barely healed anything as he's got so many healing reductions on him. Now we're gonna see that intermission going in, all of the statues are being pulled. Now we're gonna see who's actually soaking that ritual of Voe. The Bloodlust also being committed now, so that is something that they were holding on to for healing as also for damage. Lepan just dropping so low as Eagle is trying to keep him alive with all that he has, with the Ashen also on the floor, and they're just trying to power through this as the next ritual is going to happen in a second. There we go, next ritual is coming in as all the statues getting pulled. Let's see if they can survive this one.
Yeah, this is so intense, but they're almost at the end now. Lepan is so out of resources, though. No meta, no Fiery Brand, no Fell Devastation, and no Last Resort available here. Also does not have a Cheat Death Trinket available. Is going to soak this ritual also. Gets a nice big shield there. And he's got that and Hilda's Aegis trinket from the 9, but look at his health, he's got nothing here, he's dead. He's dead, and they don't have a battle res available, and you can see the boss now is just gonna start auto-attacking and dealing a lot of damage here. 20% health on the boss. They need to battle res Lepan, and they've been able to do it. Great battle res there, but he still doesn't have much resources left. He's got Fell Devastation back. And so that's going to put him in meta for another 6 seconds. He is running out of time, but so is the boss now. 10% health. They should be able to get over the finish line here, but this is just so brutal on the tank. Oh my goodness. Oh man, they've done it though. That is the boss's health hitting 0. Wow.
Oh my goodness. Team Name only killing one of the Tormentors there and having an extremely strong finish that Halls of Atonement run. Man, when we talk about, oh yeah, Lord Chamberlain, easy boss fight and everything, you don't have to worry too much. But when you bring 3 Tormentors on top of that settles, it is no joke.
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to, yes, you did see Evolving running that, that Warlock play. It allows them to have so much more AoE damage, but even then, Team Name playing 3 Tormented mobs on the last boss. If Evolving didn't have issues at the beginning, I feel like the dungeon would have been very close, but Team Name being able to pull out at that very last minute with that 3 Tormented, that Executioner Varuth skip, I felt like that was so impressive by Team Name to be able to take game 1 there.
It really was. And let's not forget that, like, even if Evolving was going to having any of their old times previously here, Dratnos, the best that Evolving had was 1620. So maybe they could have improved on top of that, and it could have been a very neck-and-neck game. But, man, Team Name, for a dungeon that we hyped up as saying, hey, this might be the first time that they play it on the weekend. Who knows if they practice it? They just crushed this dungeon.
I think that it's got to be that Varuth skip that is giving them so much time. And look at what Lepan is able to do here. Out-healing Igloo. Out-healing and out-damaging Igloo. Why did we bring healers again? Does anybody...
Whoa.
2 Vengeance.
Put some respect.
Oh, wait, hold on, you can't play 2.
Put some respect on Igloo's name, all right.
Can we get a prop paladin in here?
Oh no! Let's start going over let's start going over the dungeon here. We got to check out that Evolving wipe early on.
Yeah, that Evolving wipe early on really put them in a hole. Having their healer die almost immediately into the pull, like you see, he gets meleeed to death. Shelly has to commit that Soul Stone to get him up, like whenever he wants to be ramping on this entire pack. And so then after that healer death, they try to recover, but you can tell that they've committed way too much to that. They don't have the killing power. Their tank has to start kiting the trash pack, and then one thing leads to another, and then they just spiral out of control, have a lot of deaths. In the meantime, meanwhile, on the other side, Team Name here, running a really good strategy. They're pulling all of their trash on top of the boss, getting great value out of that Subtlety Rogue into Halkias, turning that AoE damage into an immense amount of single target damage. And on top of that, look at that Varuth skip. You see him off to the side. He is Mind Soothed. They're pulling all of this trash right on top of the third boss, gearing up to play 3 tormented mobs with Lord Chamberlain, which is a very dicey proposition for any tank. And on the meantime, you do see Evolving grabbing that Varuth mob, and it allows them, I think, a position to catch back up if you do see team name make any mistakes. So them playing Varuth there on the side of Evolving is the smart play, even if it wasn't just a part of their strategy, because they don't need to go as aggressive. And you do see Lord Chamberlain gets engaged. Lapan has that dot on him, and while you have that dot on you, tanks are liable to die to that dot just in general, Jack. You're well aware you're a healer on this fight.
And
look at this. Lapan is just
people
sitting
think of
here.
it as you go for it.
No, you're good. It's all you.
People think of it as just like a regular mechanic for the tanks and everything like that, and they don't see like the spiky damage you might see out of like Mozala or something. But man, it chunks tanks. Tattoos or no.
Exactly, and it just is one of those things that once he dies, they're in a fine position because Mikkel does have that evasion, and he's able to just tank the boss for a few moments to be able to engineering battle res Lapan, and the boss was low enough to where it didn't matter, but playing 3 tormented mobs on Lord Chamberlain is no joke for sure.
Oh, it is insane there. So huge plays by the team in general, and I don't know if I even saw it correctly, and I'm not super familiar with Destro Warlock, I'll admit, but it looked like as Shella was going for the res on their healer, he also got the Drain Life debuff on him, and I'm pretty sure he dispelled himself. I'm not sure if Destro Warlocks are able to get, I think it's with the Imp, right, Dratnos?
Yeah.
Know. Yeah, I don't know if he already had the Imp out, prepped and ready to like self-dispel or dispel somebody else, but the fact that he got his debuff removed, I don't know if it's either like the Warlock personal that might also dispel it, but it disappeared from him, and he protected himself very well.
That is one of the strengths of Warlock, is there are a lot of fights with not enough dispels as kind of their core mechanic, and whenever you have a Warlock, they have an Imp. That's an extra magic dispel, and the Shadow Priest, that mass dispel, also up to 5 extra magic dispels. So this comp is uniquely well suited to handling boss fights like Echelon, just by virtue of those DPS magic dispels, those are the only 2 real sources of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but with that win, team name up 1 and in a really strong position here as well. Nagura, Plaguefall going to be our follow-up dungeon.
Yeah, Plaguefall is not something we've seen out of Evolving just yet, while Team Name, on the other hand, had a 14-minute 14 run, which was our second best run that we've seen. The only better run was from Perplex with 12 minutes 28. And yeah, I think this might be difficult for Evolving, considering that they hadn't had to play it before, meaning they maybe didn't practice it too much. I don't want to say that because they actually improved on their Mist dungeon before.
True.
It looks like they really are practicing a lot and they're prepared for things. So I don't immediately want to say they didn't practice, but it was probably on like the lower, priority for them. So it's gonna be a tough one for Evolving.
Well, it's always tough to say because that was the exact same argument that we used for Halls of Atonement with team name, and they just completely dunked on any sort of idea that they didn't practice for that dungeon. So, it's tough to make assumptions in this game when you look at how well these top teams are able to practice and just the wide breadth of the dungeons. You might say, Tettles, it's only 8 dungeons. It's not hard to do 8 dungeons. We got routes and everything. But the level, the speed that they're doing it, and you think about something like Plaguefall, right? That dungeon is just fast.
Dude, the dungeon's a shootout, and a lot of with the best run being around the 12-minute range, most of the issues in that dungeon will happen in the first pull. They are absolutely doing a jumbo pull, and it is explosive fortified raging, which are not generous affixes. And if you just have one misstep, your tank can end up dying. You have an explosive that goes off that kills somebody, and it's another one of these things like we saw in the Halls of Atonement where one mistake turns into your full group wipe. And once that happens, basically if the other team didn't wipe, you were in a terrible position. It's what we've seen from Necrotic Wake, and Plaguefall has very similar tendencies this week.
Man, I want to go to Aquatic Wake. You want to go to Aquatic Wake, Dratnos? That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Stop.
There's Blackwater Behemoth down there as well. You just start swimming around the entire dungeon.
Was that raid in Cataclysm, the one that never got actually implemented, but was always the entrance was there? Yeah, I want to go there too.
Spoilies. Radnos the Leaker once again. Plaguefall going to be coming up for our second dungeon in, again, our lower finals. If Team Name takes this victory, they will move on to our group finals, which also means they qualify for our global tournament later on this year. Evolving, coming in pretty deep on the seeding. They were 12th seeding overall in our 24 teams, but they might just be the ones to qualify today if they can turn around and get this reverse sweep rolling. Lots going to be on the line for both of these teams as Plaguefall gets underway.
All right, so let's take a look what Evolving is going to bring for this dungeon. As we talked about, they haven't played this before, and it looks like it's a pretty standard comp, except they're not going for the full physical damage comp that we see from Team Name here with the Prod Warrior and the Hunter. They're going for more of a mixed comp with half physical with the Rogue and the Windwalker, and then magic damage from Lucy and the Frost Mage, and the Vengeance Demon Hunter magic damage increase.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense there. I like the side of Team Name here. I love this kind of full commitment to the physical damage rather than being sort of a hybrid strategy, whereas more like what Evolving has. Both teams are going huge here. They are pulling massive amounts of enemies onto this first Tormented mob. This is such a scary pull, but you're obligated to do it when the key level is this low because you know the other team is going to attempt it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And Evolving not committing their last here for this, as Team Name is. I'm not sure if Evolving maybe pulled slightly less, because Team Name's pull looks incredibly huge, as they're now also just dealing with this. Not this interesting. Did they pull this in later, or did they somehow aggro it on accident? I'm not certain, because this is usually something. Okay. Evolving having a lot of issues on their side. Oh no. All of the mobs were raging and some casts went off, it looks like, and they all just went down. It's gonna be a full team wipe. Thankfully, the Tormentor's HP is not gonna reset, so you can still finish that off. And I think a lot of the trash already went down, but still very unfortunate for Evolving.
They only have 4% on the board here, Nagura, so that is not what they were hoping to have happen on their first pull. You gotta wonder why the Bloodlust wasn't committed for this as well. Maybe they have something cool they're gonna do with it later, but if they're just using it to get a little bit more single target on the first boss, then this starts to really look like it's going to punish them, because you know the extra little bit of healing you get from Bloodlust is actually quite substantial on a pull like that.
Yeah, it really seems like that's something you do want to commit, because it's not tyrannical either, so the only other pull that I would think of that you want to have that last for is the boss. Maybe if you pull something on top of the boss. But if you do such a huge pull from the get-go, considering that they wiped as well, because it's raging too, so you just have all of those mobs sitting in raging range, and you don't really have anyone who can get rid of the raging, which is another advantage for Team Name's comp here, because they have the Hunter. Hunter actually can get rid of the raging, while Evolving doesn't have any class that can do that. Actually, Rogue can, but it's not as on a low cooldown as like the Hunter is, right?
Yeah, Shiv, this expansion does remove those enrage effects. It is something you can do, yeah. But Hunters definitely have the easier time. But Hunters and Druids still the kind of premier soothe effects in these dungeons. Team Name are working on Glopgrog here. They have it almost dead. They got to be careful it doesn't reset. Ooh, that was pretty close, actually, to the barrier where it would have reset, but they've managed to avoid that. 3 minutes and 1 second is going to be their boss 1 split with also 17% count. Evolving still have yet to pull that first boss, and they have all of these gushing slimes to take care of first as well. They are going to pull the slimes into the boss with Bloodlust, so this was the idea all along. They do get quite a bit of priority damage onto the boss with these slimes around, but they have to be careful because the slimes do quite a lot of group damage.
Yeah, and there's a lot of explosive spawning as well that you preferably want to have the Paladin, the healer, and the tank deal with. But we saw both the Rogue and the Windwalker going there helping out to make sure none of those actually go off. Team Name on the other side, though, they're already done with this for a long time, as they're already gathering up their third trash pull, which seems to be another big one. They have a Plague Rock here, plus a Spine Breaker to watch out for those frontals, as we saw Lepan just dodge it there on his Prod Warrior. Shield Wall also committed for this big pull. Lots of tank damage coming in as well. They also do have that Necrolord on the Windwalker, on both sides, so they do get that extra haste buff as well if they want to.
That is a nice little effect of the Necrolord, right? Is you get to, as long as your Fleshcraft is on cooldown, when you walk near the corpses of the slimes in this dungeon, you do get to like absorb a little buff depending on which type of slime it was. So a useful little piece of value you get from having a Necrolord on your team in this Necrolord dungeon.
Yeah, and now Evolving did get the boss down as well, unfortunately, approximately 1 minute late. So, considering everything, it's not too bad, because it looked like a pretty big wipe, and it looks like they lost a lot. But 1 minute for a wipe like this is okay, I would say. So, in case Team Name does make a mistake later on the line in this dungeon, it is possible for Evolving to catch up for sure.
Absolutely, and this is definitely a dungeon where that kind of thing can happen, especially if they have ambitious pulls later. You know, we saw like Pieces Donkeys, for instance, pulling trash onto the third boss, if I'm not mistaken. At least one team did. They pulled like the entire third boss room onto the third boss. And I think that was a decision.
Sheesh.
It may have been Sheesh, okay, yeah, while they were behind. And I think it was a good call for that reason. If Team Name elects to do that while they're ahead, that's the kind of thing that could absolutely cost them. So that's something they really, they still need to keep pulling fast. Like you said, they're not that far ahead, but something in that 1 to 2 minute range. It's enough that they should be cautious, but not enough that they should slow down.
Yeah, definitely agreed, as Team Name is now using that Shroud. Very interesting. They're not even using any of those Plague Borers, because it's Season 2 of Shadowlands, the Plague Borers of this mini-boss actually did get changed. You're only going to get a certain amount of sets of the Plague Borers. I think it's 6. So at some point, you're not going to have them spawn any longer. Evolving, though, on their side, having some more issues, unfortunately, as Alex goes down. And Woozy is in that Dreamweaver pot. They did manage to get the rest on the tank, but there's just more and more deaths as they're trying to finish this off. But they're all in raging range. And you just have explosives spawning everywhere as they're kiting out this pool.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those catastrophes for Evolving. It cost them their battle res, and I don't know if they're going to be able to finish off this pack. Maybe Woozy can pull it out here, but even if he can, they don't have anybody there who can cast a battle res. He's going to try his best to do a classic Frost Mage kite here. We'll see if it works out, but meanwhile, Team Name are already on that second boss. They have a bunch of trash coming in with it as well. And there's that trinket you can see Lepan using. That's that 9 trinket. It's actually so good for a lot of these different types of encounters. It basically, absorbs like a flat amount of damage from attacks. Quite a high amount of damage, too. You reduce the damage that gets taken from enemies in front of you by 7,500. So each incoming attack or dot tick or anything like that gets reduced by 7,500 for 8 seconds, which is just a huge amount of defense. And then also it starts doing extra damage once it's absorbed enough also. So very, very powerful trinket for Mythic Plus.
Yeah, definitely a lot of value as they're now dealing with Dr. Ickes. The first bomb that spawned is being ignored, as you can see. They're going to be using those defensive cooldowns and immunities to make sure they're going to survive that explosion. Everyone does have immunity on their team, except that Windwalker. There's probably just going to get a bunch of cooldowns and use his own defensive cooldowns to be able to survive that one. And this second Plague Bomb spawning right now also being ignored, but yeah, it looks like they're totally fine. They saved some of their offensive cooldowns here and damage for this last phase to make sure they don't have that second bomb explode, because they wouldn't have any defensives ready anymore for a second explosion.
One thing that Team Name is doing that Evolving isn't doing is actually using that bolstering anima power with the explosive affix and getting quite a bit of value out of it. Whereas Evolving have instead gone with that kind of more standard Champions brand power. I actually really like the bolstering power whenever explosive is active. So look at this, 3 explosives have spawned, and that's plus 12% damage now, given that after that first explosive as well. The entire team is just bolstered so much right now.
Yeah, I think whenever explosive is an affix, everyone should just be required to go with the bolstering tormentor buff, because then it makes you want to kill the explosives, right? Usually the damage healers are like, no, I'm not going to touch that. It's like the healer stuff. But now it actually gives you a damage buff, so you want to kill them as fast as possible to get that damage increase.
In my group, that's just going to mean we yell at the healer even more, like, dude, you got to kill those things faster. I need my damage buff.
True.
All right, team name moving on towards the third boss here. They sap and ring one of the first ambusher by itself. Given that it was sapped, I think it won't even be in combat with them after the CC expires, and they are now into this big double trash pull. It's going to be a large commitment of resources as well. They're using Ashen Hallow on this. It's a very scary pull, but notably they have CC'd off an extra mob also with Incapacitate, and they didn't pull the boss in until all this trash was dead. So even though this was a scary pull, they did a really good job of not going too ham.
Yeah, I think this room here, I wonder how many insane pulls those teams have tried, because you don't have any restrictions anymore with Pride, right? That's something that held the teams back before, where they just spawned the Pride first and then dealt with Domina Venom Blade. But you don't have to do that anymore. Theoretically, you can pull this whole room with the boss, but we haven't seen anyone attempt that just yet. And I wonder how many times these teams have tried to do something like that, because it's just incredibly dangerous having these snipers in this room, these ambushers. There are so many things going off. So spiders that you need to stun, the shoots going out from the sniper as well, and they're really hard to gather up because they just don't like moving, some of those mobs. And that's why I think none of those teams actually have committed on any like insanely huge pulls, but I would like to see that one team do that in the future.
Yeah, it's so scary. Like, look what's happened to team name here. Igloo is just taking so much damage because he's been targeted by the stun from the boss twice. You know, if that happens while you're also trying to pull a bunch of trash, that is just it's just gonna be a full team wipe, right? There's very little margin of error if something like that were to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely incredibly dangerous to attempt something like that. As team name is about to finish off Domina Venom Blade, they are looking really clean in this dungeon. One thing to note as well is that Plaguefall is also going to be a dungeon in the Grand Final. Of course, in the Grand Final, there's going to be map bans, as we have 5 dungeons in the map pool, but 2 of those maps are going to be banned from the teams. But Plaguefall, they're so good. Team name is so good at this Plaguefall that it looks like they don't want to ban that one. They definitely did practice this one a lot. The only team that is faster, though, is Perplexed, that is waiting in the final for whichever team is going to be winning the series with that, I believe it was 12 minutes 28,
which
goodness. Was the fastest dungeon by Perplexed, and that's just insane.
Yeah, team name have been looking so fast here, but 12:28 is just another level. Yeah. I mean, it's so scary to be going up against Perplex. But you know what? I have a feeling that even if team name were to lose in the finals of this, as long as they can win this game and they can avoid choking from here and earn that ticket to the global finals, I think they are going to be delighted with how this weekend has went for them.
Most definitely. Team name are just performing out of their minds this weekend. They're just doing so incredibly well with some veteran players that they have in there that participated before in the MDI, of course, and also just really a lot of them just being high key pushers on live servers and just really passionate for M+, which, to be fair, we have an evolving side as well, specifically with Shelle as well, who has been competing before and who has been playing in Plus for years and years and years. As team name DAO, they are engaging Margrave Stradama, and it's going to be so difficult for Evolving to do anything at this point, as team name is already up 1 dungeon. If team name gets down Margrave Stradama here with those 3 Tormentor debuffs, by the way, then it's going to be them winning this. But first they have to get through this boss, and it's really dangerous having that 50% healing reduction here.
Yeah, it's not easy to deal with, especially also when you're slowed and you're trying to dodge all these tentacles. It is something you do have to watch out for. Luckily, most of the team does have mobility of some kind or another, and also the auras, for the most part, they go away during these intermission phases, although it looks like for some reason they're still on Lepan, maybe because he's being targeted by the boss, and now they're all returning to the rest of the players as well. I'm not sure why that happens.
I wonder if there's some tech that he can do to maybe, if he walks away from the group, then like the aggro or somehow is following him, or the aura, I don't know. It is possible that there's something that he can do to remove it from the rest of your group, possibly.
Yeah, I haven't tried fighting this boss with 3 tormented buffs myself. Yeah, you can see here.
Me neither.
Maybe it's the ads actually have an aura around them or something as well.
Oh, possible.
Yeah, okay. It sounds like it's when you tag the ads, you start getting the auras on you back in this intermission.
Oh,
so
that makes sense.
if you're really scared, you can avoid doing that and keep your movement speed up. That is the kind of tip that will be useful for basically exactly MDI players, because you'd have to be pretty masochistic to fight this boss with all 3 of these debuffs normally.
Very true. Esther just blasting through the HP here in Sodama, and the boss goes down. It's going to be team name that are qualifying for the global final. And you saw Anna being so incredibly excited as they are going to be top 2 and they're going to be qualifying. Amazing performance by team name.
There it is, Team Name taking that victory, qualifying for our globals and going back for a rematch here with Perplexed. Huge congratulations to